Welcome to the Sci-Fi Continuum. I'm Stan, your narrator. Make sure you subscribe to our channel for more stories. If I had a nickel for every time a purple-skinned woman looked at my crotch like it was a holy relic containing the secrets of the universe, I'd be able to buy my own solar system and still have enough literal change to tip a galactic bartender. It is a heavy burden being a savior of the galaxy. It is even heavier when you are a strategist for the United Earth Command, because people expect you to have a plan for everything. My current plan involves standing near the buffet table on the planet Oxel and trying not to let my dress uniform cut off the circulation to my lower halves, while 500 alien women stared at me with predatory hunger. Humanity had recently saved this entire sector from a swarm of Star Eaters, basically giant metallic space locusts that thought suns were delicious snacks. We didn't just beat them, we turned them into scrap metal and used that scrap to build a very nice playground for orphans. Now we were the undisputed big shots of the galaxy. Everyone wanted our technology, our protection, and apparently our DNA. The gala on Oxel was a shimmering affair. The architecture looked like someone had frozen a giant soap bubble and then carved a palace out of it. The lights were soft and amber. The music was ambient and ever-evolving. I stood there, Carl, a man who preferred a wrench and a cold beer to a champagne flute and a silk sash. I'm a practical guy. I'm rough around the edges. I have scars from 3 different planetary insurgencies and 1 very grumpy cat back on Earth. That was when I saw them. They weren't just looking. They were practically vibrating. 2 Oxel women stood near a crystal pillar, watching me with the kind of intensity normally reserved for a scientist discovering fire. Their skin was a vibrant, intense purple. One had long auburn hair that cascaded down her shoulders like a waterfall of autumn leaves. She was currently sticking her tongue out playfully at me, a quick little flick that made my heart do a localized somersault. That was Mila. Beside her stood Keeney, her hair a short, stylish shock of blonde that looked incredibly soft. Both were wearing these high-necked contemporary white suits. The fabric was textured with intricate panels and stitched seams that followed the curves of their bodies with terrifying precision. They had little insignia on their shoulders that looked like golden wings. When they caught my eye, they didn't look away. They smiled. And when I say they smiled, I mean they beamed. Their teeth were blindingly white and perfectly straight. Their energy was infectious. "Strategist Carl," a voice nearby whispered. It was one of my lieutenants. "I think you've been targeted. Requesting permission to retreat so I don't get caught in the crossfire." "Permission denied," I grunted, though I didn't take my eyes off the purple duo. "Stay and witness my sacrifice for the Federation." The 2 women marched over. They didn't walk. They sailed. Mila, the one with the auburn hair, reached me first. Her bright green eyes were wide with genuine wonder. "You are the one," she said. Her voice was like honey poured over gravel, sweet but with a bit of a kick. "The human who redirected the asteroid with nothing but a gravitational tether and a very loud swear word." "That was me," I said, putting on my best stoic hero face. It was mostly the swear word that did the heavy lifting. Keeney, the blonde one with the striking blue eyes, laughed. It was a loud, energetic sound. She reached out and touched the fabric of my sleeve. "Your species is so sturdy. On Oxel, we are soft. We are built for art and philosophy. Humans are built for movement." "We do move quite a lot," I agreed. I spent the next hour talking to them. I found out they were sisters by choice, members of the Oxel Diplomatic Corps. They swooned every time I explained something simple, like how a combustion engine worked or why humans like to eat spicy food. When I described a thunderstorm on Earth, Mila actually had to lean against my arm to keep from falling over. "A sky that explodes with light and water?" she gasped, her green eyes shimmering. "It sounds so violent, so beautiful." "It's all right," I said. feeling that familiar protective instinct stir in my chest. As long as you have a good roof and someone to hold on to. They both looked at me then, their smiles widening until I thought their faces might actually crack from pure joy. I felt a heat in my gut that had nothing to do with the alien appetizers. These women were stunning, energetic, and clearly very interested in the human experience. The gala ended, but the looks they gave me stayed burned into my retinas. The next day, I was back on the UEC Valorous, the flagship of the human fleet. It was a massive hunk of steel and tungsten, a city in space. I was in my quarters trying to catch up on logistics reports when my comms buzzed. "Sir, we have 2 civilian visitors from the Oxel delegation," the deck officer said. He sounded like he was trying not to giggle. They specifically requested the man with the rugged jaw and the gravitational tether. "Send them up," I said, tossing my datapad aside. Mila and Keeney climbed through the sliding doors of my quarters a few minutes later. They were still wearing those tight white suits, though these looked even more detailed in the harsh clinical light of the ship. Mila had a small hoop earring that dangled near her jaw, and Keeney had a simple stud. They looked around my room, which was mostly metal shelves, a large bed, and a collection of vintage Terran tools. "It is so functional," Keeney said, her blue eyes darting everywhere. "There is no art here." "I'm the art," I joked, leaning against my desk. Mila stepped forward. She wasn't smiling quite as broadly now. She looked serious, though her tongue still flicked out once in a playful habit. "Carl, we have discussed this all night. We have a proposal. We have read the histories of your people. We have seen the videos of your romances. We are searching for love with a human. We want to know if what the legends say is true." "What legends?" I asked. "That humans are the most passionate lovers in the quadrant," Keeney said, stepping up beside her friend. "That you are capable of a physical intensity that could power a small moon." I didn't hesitate. I am a man of action, after all. "I volunteer," I said, "immediately. In fact, I'll volunteer twice if that helps you." Internal alarms were going off, but they were the good kind. The kind that told me I was about to have the best afternoon of my entire career. Mila reached for the seal on her high-necked suit. "We were hoping you would say that." The suits came off with a soft hiss of depressurizing fabric. Underneath, their purple skin was flawless. They were built with athletic curves that suggested they spent a lot of time in the Oxel gymnasiums. Mila's auburn hair fell over her purple shoulders like a curtain. Keeney's short blonde hair framed her face perfectly as she stepped toward the bed. I stripped off my uniform. I felt like a bear in a room with 2 exotic birds. I was hairy, scarred, and twice their muscle mass. When they saw me, they didn't look intimidated. They looked like they had just won the planetary lottery. The bed was big enough for 3, thank goodness for military over-engineering. We came together in a tangle of limbs and heat. Mila's skin felt like cool silk, but it warmed up the moment I touched her. She was vocal, making small chirping sounds of delight as I kissed my way down her neck. Keeney was more hands-on, her fingers tracing the scars on my chest with reverence. "So strong," Keeney whispered against my ear. The lovemaking wasn't just physical, it was an explosion of curiosity. They wanted to know how everything worked. They were eager to please and even more eager to be pleased. Mila's playful nature translated well to the bedroom. She was all energy and laughter, even when things got intense. Keeney was focused, her blue eyes locking onto mine as I showed her exactly why humans were considered the most advanced species in the galaxy. It wasn't just our ships, it was our stamina. I moved between them, making sure neither felt left out. The contrast of my tanned, rough skin against their smooth purple hides was a sight I'd never forget. When the climax came, it was a synchronized event that left all 3 of us gasping for air and shaking. Afterward, we didn't jump up. We did what humans do best. We cuddled. I lay in the middle, Mila tucked under my left arm, and Keeney curled into my right side. The room was quiet, save for the hum of the ship's engines. "Is it always like that?" Mila asked, her voice small and breathless. She reached up and played with the hoop earring in her ear. "Nope," I said, kissing the top of her auburn head. "That was definitely a special occasion." "I feel like my molecules have been rearranged," Keeney added, her eyes half closed in bliss. I let them rest for an hour before I told them they had to see the rest of the ship. I was proud of the Valorous. It wasn't just a warship, it was a testament to what we could build. I threw on some casual clothes, cargo pants and a black t-shirt, and they put their white suits back on. They looked slightly disheveled in the most attractive way possible. As we walked through the corridors, I saw my crew. Now, the crew of the Valorous are a bunch of hard-bitten spacers. They've seen black holes and alien invasions. But when they saw me walking with two stunning purple women in tight white suits, they couldn't help themselves. "Strategist on deck!" someone shouted from a tool bay. A chorus of whistles and cheers followed us down the hall. I gave them a sharp nod, but I couldn't hide my grin. "They seem happy for you," Keeney noted, waving energetically at a group of engineers. "They always make fun of me when I bring fine ladies for a tour of the ship," I said. "But they say I usually look too grumpy." "You are not grumpy," Mila said, poking her tongue out at a passing security guard. "You are just concentrated." We reached the center of the ship, the crown jewel, the park. Most ships have a little hydroponics bay. The Valorous had 2 full acres of Earth-native forest under a transparent dome that looked out into the stars. There were towering oaks, thick maples, and a small stream that cycled recycled water. The 2 women stopped dead in their tracks. Their jaws literally dropped. "Trees," Mila whispered. She ran toward a large oak, pressing her purple palms against the rough bark. "Actual trees from Earth. They are so sturdy. Like you." "We brought a piece of home with us," I explained, joining them. "It keeps the crew sane. It's hard to remember what you're fighting for if you only see metal and plastic." Keeney walked to the stream and dipped her fingers in. "The water is cold. It feels alive." She looked up at the stars visible through the dome above the trees. "You carry your world inside a fortress. It is the most human thing I have ever seen." They spent hours in the park. They marveled at the squirrels, which were a bit of a pest problem, but everyone loved them. And they sat on the grass, feeling the blades between their toes. I watched them, feeling a strange tug in my chest. I've had flings on a dozen planets. I've had drinks with queens and card games with pirates. But there was something about the way these 2 looked at a simple tree that made me feel like I was seeing the galaxy for the first time. "Carl?" Mila asked, looking up from where she was picking a dandelion. "The human fleet leaves tomorrow, doesn't it?" "It does," I said. "We finished the post-war reconstruction phase. We're heading back toward the Sol system." Her smile faltered for the first time. "Oh." Keeney stood up, her blue eyes searching mine. "We do not want to go back to the palace. It is very pretty, but it is very quiet. And there are no trees. And there is no one who knows how to use a gravitational tether." I looked at them. They were energetic, curious, and they clearly had a thing for rugged humans with bad attitudes. I was a strategist. I was supposed to think 10 steps ahead. "Well," I said, rubbing the back of my neck, "the Valorous is a big ship. We're always looking for cultural liaisons, and frankly, the quarters are way too big for just me." Mila's eyes lit up like twin emeralds. "Are you suggesting what I think you are suggesting?" "I'm suggesting you pack your bags," I said. They didn't answer with words. They both tackled me into the grass. We rolled around under the earth oak, laughing like idiots while the squirrels watched with judgment. That night, we didn't stay in the diplomatic quarters. We went back to my room. The second round was even better than the first, because this time there was no testing the ground involved. It was just fire and purple skin, and the sound of the ship's engines thrumming in our bones. I showed them things that aren't in the history books, and they showed me that Oxsail women were a lot tougher than they looked. When the morning shift whistle blew, I felt a weight on both sides of me. Mila was snoring softly, her auburn hair a mess across my chest. Keeney was awake, tracing the pattern of the sheets with a dreamy expression. "Do you regret volunteering?" Keeney whispered. "Nope," I said, and I meant it. The departure from Oxsail was a grand affair. The human ships began to break orbit, their massive thrusters lighting up the dark side of the planet. I stood on the bridge of the Valorous, watching the purple world shrink in the view screen. The captain walked up beside me. He was an old guy with more gray hair than a winter wolf. He looked at Mila and Keeney, who were standing at the back of the bridge, wearing new human-issue jumpsuits that were slightly less tight but still very flattering. "Strategist Carl," the captain said, suppressing a smirk. "I see we have some new civilian contractors." "Liaisons, sir," I corrected him. "Essential for maintaining deep space relations with the Oxsail sector." "Of course," the captain said. "And I assume they require 24-hour supervision?" "I've already volunteered for the duty, sir. It's a sacrifice I'm willing to make." The captain laughed and clapped me on the shoulder. "The crew is already betting on how long it takes for you to marry both of them. My money is on 3 months. I looked back at them. Mila was trying to figure out how the coffee machine worked, and Keeney was explaining the ship's sensor array to a confused ensign. They looked happy. They looked like they belonged in the stars. 3 months, I said, watching Mila finally get the coffee machine to work and celebrate with a little dance. "That's a long time, Cap. I'm a practical man. I usually move much faster than that." As the Valorous entered warp, jumping into the beautiful streaking lights of hyperspace, I felt a pair of purple hands slide into mine. We were heading home, but for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was leaving anything behind. I had my ship, I had my trees, and I had 2 curious women who had searched for a lover and found a whole new universe instead. And all I had to do was volunteer. It was the best strategic decision I ever made. Expanded and exclusive Sci-Fi Continuum stories are available as ebooks. Links in the description.